Echoes of Us, a novel by Hope Happies. Chapter 4. The First Night. Celia. She did not sleep. This was not unusual. Celia had always been a poor sleeper in unfamiliar places, her body's version of due diligence, maintaining alertness until the environment had been sufficiently assessed. In hotel rooms, she read case files. Insomnia was not distress. It was her nervous system conducting its own audit, and she had learned to let it run. She lay in the Linden Room's bed for 40 minutes. Then, she got up. The room was different in full dark than it had been in candlelight, less theatrical, more actual. The ivory silk of the bedding catching what light came through the window and rendering it a flat, functional gray. She had noted the room's dimensions before getting into bed, roughly 4 meters by 5, ceiling higher than standard, east-facing window toward the Atlantic. Fireplace with the fire she had not lit, burning itself down to coals. Communication doors on the south wall with their 3-inch gap. She had noted the gap and left it as it was. She was not sure what she would have been communicating by closing it. She dressed in the dark and went to the corridor. The wall sconces were still burning. The candles stood at the same height they had been when she and Adrian had walked past them 4 hours ago. She looked at this for a moment, added it to the separate mental ledger she was keeping, not for facts but for phenomena whose category was not yet established, and moved on. She was not ready to decide what kind of house this was. The first thing she did was map the Linden Room properly. A preliminary assessment before bed was not the same as a map, and she did not like being in spaces she had not mapped. She paced the perimeter. She opened the wardrobe. Empty. Cedar and old lavender. She examined the window latch. Functional. Unlocked. The fireplace surround. Original ironwork. Probably pre-Civil War. She returned to the communication doors. Frosted glass in a dark wood frame, 2 panels that could swing either direction, no lock on the south side. She pressed her palm lightly to the glass, not pushing, making contact. Cool. Slightly thicker than modern glass, which meant original installation. These doors had been designed as a feature, not added after the fact. Someone had wanted these rooms to be able to reach each other. Her gaze went to the chair at the writing desk. The impulse was brief and practical. Wedge it under the handle. Establish a boundary. Sleep without the variable. She looked at the chair for a moment. Then she looked back at the doors. She was not afraid of a gap. She was not going to behave as though she were. She removed her hand from the glass. She noted the doors without deciding what to do with them, and moved on. From the ash room, nothing. The amber firelight she had seen through the gap when she first went to bed had gone to dark. Adrian was asleep, or lying in the dark the way she was lying in the dark, which amounted to the same thing in terms of what could be confirmed. She went into the corridor. She had noted the library on her first pass, double doors at the corridor's south end, unlocked, and had decided to come back to it. The decision had felt less like caution and more like the sense that some rooms required a particular approach, that arriving at them immediately, without preparation, was a way of not arriving at them at all. She pushed the doors open. The library resolved itself in sections as she moved her candle through it. Shelves from floor to a ceiling 4 meters high, with a rolling ladder on a brass rail. A reading table at the center, its surface clear and slightly dusty in a way that suggested deliberate clearing rather than neglect. Someone had left it ready for use. A window seat on the far wall, deep enough to sleep in, facing the Atlantic. She went to the nearest shelf and scanned the spines. The books were not organized by subject. She understood this within 30 seconds, because the evidence was immediate. A treatise on grief, beside a monograph on coastal architecture. A history of the Portuguese fishing industry, next to a collection of First World War letters. A Victorian novel, beside a legal text on New England inheritance law. She moved along the shelf, and the pattern, or the absence of the expected pattern, continued. Not alphabetical, not chronological, not by genre or period or language or size. Organized on a principle she could not name, which was unusual. Celia was good at naming principles. She filed this under "requires further analysis" and went to the window seat. The 1948 architectural survey was in her jacket pocket, folded to the relevant pages. She had found it in the estate attorney's packet and brought it into the house the way she brought documents she expected to need, without announcement, as a matter of routine. She unfolded it on her knee. The second floor plan was on the third page. She oriented it to the window and traced the corridor. The ash and linden rooms were marked Bedroom A and Bedroom B, connected by their double line of communication doors. She moved south along the plan. There. Adjacent to the library, separated from it by what appeared on the plan to be a solid wall, was a room. Small, 3 meters by 3, labeled Study Secondary, with a single door marked onto the corridor. She looked up. The corridor's south wall, visible through the library's open doors, was solid plaster. Unbroken. No door, no frame, no evidence of infill. She went and held the candle close to confirm. Original, continuous. The wall was not hiding anything she could detect. She returned to the window seat. She wrote the ordinary explanations in the left column of her mental ledger. Renovations, a moved wall, an unupdated survey. They were plausible. She noted that plausible was not the same as established, and that noting the distinction was not the same as drawing a conclusion, and that she was very good at this particular kind of deferral. She set the survey aside. At some point, she stopped looking at it and simply looked at the shelves. Her father had had a library, 3 shelves in the spare bedroom of the Somerville house, organized in a system that had seemed arbitrary until she was 14, and understood it was chronological by when he had read each book, earliest to most recent, so that the shelf was the same as his reading life laid out in order. She had understood this and had not mentioned it to him. It had seemed private. This library did not have his books. It did not have his shelves or his system, but it had the qualities she associated with him. The quality of someone who organized things by a principle that wasn't immediately legible and hadn't felt the need to explain it. The room felt, in the specific and illogical way of rooms that reminded you of people, like Nolan Duarte's spare bedroom, like the shape of someone who had been gone for 11 years, and whom she did not, as a rule, allow herself to think about with her full attention. She was thinking about him now. She let herself do it for a moment. Then, she looked out at the Atlantic. The ocean at this hour was not scenic. It was enormous and dark and entirely disinterested in whether she was looking at it or not. The sound came through the glass faintly, the long, unhurried push and withdrawal of water against the cliff, the same rhythm it would maintain whether she was here or not, whether this house stood or not. She found this, without entirely understanding why, a relief. Back in the Linden room, the fire was fully out. The room was cooler. She got into bed and looked at the ceiling, which was dark and had no opinion about anything. Through the gap in the communication doors, the ash room was completely dark. No fire, no candle, just the particular depth of a space that continued beyond the immediate one, and faintly, through the glass or around it, present in the room the way the cold was present, the ocean. The same sound from the library window, attenuated now, reduced to the lowest register. Push and withdrawal. Push and withdrawal. Something that had been doing this before the house existed and would continue after. She did not think about the survey. She did not think about the missing room. She listened to the ocean instead, and she was asleep before she had finished, deciding to be.